What's good YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Last and Conditioning. If you want to grow more, you have to train more often, and this is why. The very first reason as to why, if you want to grow more, you have to train more frequent. The thing is, the more often you can train and actually recover from it, the sooner you can actually stimulate these muscles and then basically re-stimulate them and get them to grow. Same goes for getting stronger. If you aren't training often enough to actually push the muscles to get bigger and get stronger, then you will ultimately not really go all that far. We can use this bottle as an example. If you are always empty, and well, basically in this case, if you're always fully recovered, if you're never really pushing it a little bit, then your amount of recovery will never really be taxed. So if you always just empty it out completely and you always fully recover, then ultimately you can do quite a bit more. If with this bottle you actually train and you actually get to fill it up a little bit, then you want to actually tax your recovery, which is what you ultimately need. However, if you on the opposite end actually end up doing too much, which will actually happen for some people when they follow certain science-based recommendations of how much training volume they should actually be doing each session. Now, if you do this, then ultimately instead of your recovery jug and basically being fully emptied out and you will always be over-recovered, you will have a different issue. So to illustrate, you may be able to see the water in this bottle, or at the very least you can see it moving about. If you are constantly taxing out your recovery way too much, then ultimately you will fill out your recovery jug and this will not really get flushed out. And what you will basically end up going to be is you're going to get injured, or best case, you will just be spinning your wheels and you will be constantly maxed out at all times and you will have absolutely no room for growth. Whereas the completely opposite is true with the other side. So if you're training 1 or 2 times per week and you're not training that hard in the first place, you should actually be training more frequent, because at this point you are basically always what we can call over-recovered. Or in other words, your recovery is never really taxed. The bottle never really gets filled up in any way, shape or form. So you need to do this, and a way to do this, and probably the best way I would say, is you train more frequent instead of trying to train with a higher volume approach per session. There is a threshold of how many sets you can actually do in a session that will actually give you a net benefit, whereas there's on the other side, if you do too many sets in that particular session, you will dig yourself a very big recovery hole, or to illustrate, you will fill up your recovery jug, and what shouldn't have taken you a couple of days to actually recover from, that actually might take you a full week or potentially even longer. And then this amount of fatigue or recovery demand that you actually place in your body, that will carry over onto your next few sessions. Now, with a different example, if you're actually training often enough with decent enough intensity, as you can see with this, you will place some recovery demands on your body and actually force it to adapt. And you will not be over-recovered, but you will also not be under-recovering at the same time. So with this, you will actually be hitting the perfect balance, essentially. You will be placing some demands and you will be forced to adapt, or your body will be forced to adapt to the stimulus that you're putting onto it. Versus with this other bottle, no demands whatsoever. And with the previous example, way too much demand. We want to be somewhere like with this bottle, in around the middle. We want to have a good amount of demand without actually ending up under recovering. We don't want to be at our maximum recoverable training volume at all times. We can do that in periods, but we don't want to do that too often, because one, potentially overuse, so you can get injured or you can get a lot of inflammation, and then you have to ultimately back off your training. So if you are going to be at your maximum recoverable training volume, that should only be used for short periods of time, maybe towards some sort of competition. But aside from that, you probably really shouldn't be doing, especially as an average person that are not training to compete in any sort of sport. You should probably be around your midway point where you actually have the ability to recover well without being over-recovered or under-recovered. So this is actually the reason why you need to train more often, because if you can train more often and recover from it, you can place the proper amount of demands, so you will grow and you will get more out of your training. Thank you for watching. Last Conditioning, signing out.